Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I come from China, so someone say that you can understand Chinese, so I have to speak in English. So it's terrible. But actually, before I introduce our company, I told you some story, my personal story. Actually, several weeks ago, there's a big controversy between the government and Kuaidi, DiDi, and also Uber in China. The controversy is about the policy, of course. The Chinese government, especially the Ministry of the Transportation, say the sharing economy, right? Like the DiDi black car is good, but you have not to make any money of it. So should be non-for-profit. I mean, it's kind of very strange for me because actually several years ago, I worked for NGO, non-for-profit organizations, saving the children from the Chinese orphanage. And I tried to make a difference in China, but it's very difficult. I realized that in China, I think it's the same thing in other countries. I mean, sometimes non-for-profit has a very limited, power. Sometimes you have to using the power of the commercial, the business. Sometimes business can even do more things like, than the non-for-profit. So when the government say that non-for-profit, I think it's kind of strange for us. But anyway, I think, in China, I'm working for the DiDi, Kuaidi, and it's kind of you can say illegal or gray area, but they are making more differences than I worked in non-for-profit. So I'm very proud of it. Actually, before DiDi, Kuaidi, I worked for Alibaba in China, and also I worked for the airport, China. And I think, DiDi, Kuaidi is just like the Alibaba. It's very simple platform, matching the demand and supplies. It's very easy. And, but the market is very huge. So let me introduce some of the information about the market and also the company. You can see just like, we founded in 2012. So we are only 3 years old. It's a very young company, actually. But the valuation of the company is about $16 billion. So it's very huge. And also, it's bigger than, when Alibaba was 3 years old. I mean, I think, investors, especially the smart money, I mean, they must, see something. Otherwise, they cannot invest so much money in our company. So why they invest money? I think it's the market, the transportation, the traffic, the demands, and also everything about the urbanization in China is very huge. It's very huge. I think a lot of people always asking me that, how do you consider the competition between DiDi, Kuaidi, and Uber? I think it's good. Competition is good. And also the market size is very huge. I can say it's very huge. So that's the reason why the valuation of the DiDi, Kuaidi is very huge too. So that's one of the reasons. You can see we have a lot of kind of business. Beside the black car, we also have this kind of DiDi bus. So DiDi bus is kind of it's carpooling, but it's more than 20 people. So if there's 20 people together, they try to travel to the same direction or kind of a similar route, we can put them together. So that's the other kind of a business. So, either way, you can see we can provide a lot of kind of transportation services in China. I mean, there's a lot of demands actually. Some people maybe traveled to China before. So Beijing, Shanghai, and some other small cities in Chinese, standard, like Wuhan, have more than 5 million people population in that city. And also the traffic, especially the public transportation, is very bad. So people are very, have a lot of demands about the transportation, travel from A to B. So we try to provide this kind of services for them. Actually, it's about, it's not, to using this kind of professional, transportation. Actually, there's a lot of, government-controlled, government-owned transportation companies in China. All the taxi companies, all the, bus transportation companies in China is kind of a state-owned or semi-state-owned. But the services or the products is very bad. And people is kind of have a lot of pain, to traveling around in the cities. The commuting time in Beijing, I told Martin, the driver picking me up in the airport, I told him that I traveled for about 2 or 3 hours one way each morning from my home to the company. So it's very painful, actually. It's very painful. So people are, trying, vying for this kind of services in China. And the market, especially the urbanization in China, is very huge. It's very fast. That's the reason. Also, I think, the valuation about the company, about DiDi Kuaidi, is not just about the, software or app. It's more than that, actually. I think one of the reasons that the valuation about the company is big is because of the sharing economic on-demand platform. On the other side, it's about the data, the big data. So we can show the map of the Beijing. This is the map of the Beijing. This is not kind of, this is using the GPS traction of all the DiDi Kuaidi vehicles and to mapping out this kind of all the routes of the Beijing. So it's very accurate. Sometimes even the government don't have this kind of data. And also this about the demands. The red one, the red dots, is a very huge demand in the Beijing cities. So you can see the volume of the data is very huge, 50 TB each day, actually. So I think that's kind of a trade-off. We have a lot of demands from the government. They're trying to talking with us, try to, work with us, to try to use this data to find out some very useful, information and also intelligence. Try to make the city planning more smarter. I think this is good. It's a very valuable things. We are also expanding to the international market. This September, we enter into the United States. The New York City is our first market. And also we enter into the Southern Asia, like India, and Singapore, and Taiwan, Hong Kong. And we are also working with another kind of partners worldwide, try to providing this kind of services to Chinese people or people speaking Chinese, traveling around, and also to the all the international travelers. This is our kind of a future plan. Actually, we are trying to, we have a kind of a 10 million, transactions on our platform each day for now. But also it's kind of, growing very fast. And also for now, it's, to get the private car or taxi or bus, it's more than 3 minutes. But in the future, we try to cut this kind of a transaction time to 3 minutes. So each time you want to travel from A to B, so in 3 minutes, you will get the services. That's our kind of plan in the future, maybe in 3 years or 5 years. Okay. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah. Okay. So I already talked about this kind of reason why behind this kind of very fast growth behind this DiDi and Kuaidi. And I think one of the reasons I think about the Chinese market, I think it's very special sometimes. You can see the Alibaba and also Tencent is growing very fast. Even faster than the internet companies in States. The reason behind that is I think it's about the market, the power of the market, the free market. I mean, Alibaba is kind of basically is kind of trying to cut in the cost of the setting up the stores. Actually, setting up or to make the physical stores in China, the cost is very huge. You have to apply for the license. You have to, making a lot of kind of, application to the government. The fee, the cost is very, very high. So Alibaba is kind of an online store. So basically, it's cutting the cost of the setting up the stores. So that's the reason why the Alibaba is growing so fast in China compared to the States. You have a very easy process sometimes compared to China to setting up physical stores. So that's the reason why there's no Alibaba in States. I think it's the same thing happening in China for the DiDi Kuaidi too. I mean, I say that all the transportation companies in China is kind of state-owned or semi-state-owned. So it's kind of a centralized transportation system. There's no free market there in China. So, but all the painful things happening in the, between the gap between the demand and supply is very huge. So people are looking for this kind of solutions. So that's the reason actually behind why the DiDi Kuaidi is growing so fast. I mean, so I think in the future, definitely I think there's another Alibaba in the transportation, sharing platform. So I think that's the future. Next slide, okay. Yeah, this kind of internet plus the Chinese government is talking about things. And some people, I think so some of the media, especially about the Western media, always asking the Chinese government why, is there any slowing down about the Chinese economy? I think so, yes, but they're trying to change this kind of, growth model from the, the exploitation-oriented to the, internal supply, right? I think so. One of the, the engine they're looking for is kind of just like the DiDi Kuaidi, try to match the gap between the demand and supply for the Chinese populations. I think it's a good direction actually. So it's a good time for us. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And also, just like the Alibaba, we provide a lot of kind of, the gig or part-time jobs, actually, for a lot of young people. The black car services of the DiDi has just began from the August last year. For now, it's just about 1 year, but we already provided about 1 million, part-time jobs for the Chinese young people. I think it's good for the whole society. I mean, it's good. Yeah, that's the mobile phone users in China is very huge. So actually, what I'm trying to say is that the Chinese market is very huge, and also the Chinese young people. It's quite, sometimes, people always, told me that the Chinese people are very shy, are very, not so, entrepreneurship. Actually, it's not. Chinese young people are very kind of, energetic. And also, they're trying to looking for something that they can make differences. So that's the reason I think, why there's a DiDi Kuaidi or Alibaba is growing in China very fast, actually. So anyway, we are trying to making differences in China. And I think in the future, there's another great company will be coming out from China. So anyway, thank you guys for this chance. Yeah.
You can sit down. Okay. So, thank you very much, Stephen.
Thank you.
So you are definitely the guy with the longest commute to this conference. Tell me, I saw that you made some investments to India, some investments in the US with Lyft, and some in Singapore as well. What are your plans in Europe? Do you have any plans?
For now, no, actually. But we are looking for the kind of partners, worldwide. So we are looking for the partners here too. Yeah.
Okay, tell me a bit about your approach now in China. Your initial statement right at the beginning, you were saying that you have problem with the government, or did you say so that they restrict your business? And they said you are not allowed to do that for money? Is that right? Did I get it right, or was it just...
Yeah, you're right, you're right. I mean, I think so for a lot of the government, like the United States government too. I mean, I saw that the Hillary Clinton say that the sharing economy should not be on the kind of for-profit side, right? Should not making any monies. And the part-time the employee should be full-time employee, cannot be contractors. It's the same thing happening in the worldwide. But the Chinese government, you know, overall, are very open-minded. We got the first permission from the Shanghai government, the local government. So I think, you know, the things is changing. And also the situation is getting much better than before. So I think it's very good, yeah.
But who is then in charge? Is it the nationwide government, or is it the city government then of Shanghai who is allowed to give you the permit then to make your service possible there?
Actually, the central government making the whole policy direction, and also they give them kind of a space for the local government to making some kind of adjustment for the local policies. So it's very complicated, but otherwise, on the other side, they give the industry a lot of kind of space to you know, to navigate.
Yeah, I saw that there are 700 million potential commuters that you could reach with your service. So, what are the plans then now in China for gaining more market share? But before you answer the question of the future, can you tell us a bit more about the history? Because you started as a taxi hailing app, and then you decided to also move into the private car sharing sector. So can you tell us a bit about that? And then also explaining it, what are your plans for the future?
Okay. For the market size, I can give you some numbers. We have 3 million transactions happening on our platform, the taxi, you know, hailing services. But actually, it's, for overall, I mean, the taxi transactions in Chinese cities is about 30 million each day. So we are only less than 10%. So the market size is very huge. And for the internet companies like the DiDi Kuaidi, so we only have very small size of them. Huge whole market, so we'll be expanding, you know, very fast. A lot of transactions are actually happening just kind of not using the internet, not using the cell phone, just hailing the taxi on the street. So we are trying to change the habit, trying to move in this kind of transaction from street on the cell phone to the cell phone.
And what would be then next cities after Shanghai? So you have Beijing, you have Shanghai. Which cities would be next?
We have a kind of our services are already covered about 300 cities in China, but the penetration rate sometimes not so so high. So we are trying to getting more people using the the cell phone app.
Speaking about the data that you're gaining, you said 50 terabyte each day, is that right? Each day. Right. So where do you store all these data? Do you build your own server farms for that, or what kind of service do you use for that?
Yeah, we are building our own cloud computing storage equipment.
And it will all be based in China then as well?
Yeah, for now, yes.
So as a Chinese, what's your view on the world right now? What do you think are for you the most dynamic regions that could be of interest also for your business?
I think yes, definitely. I mean, the most dynamic places now for now is definitely China. Especially, I say that the urbanization, young people are moving from the countryside to the cities, to the Beijing, to the Shanghai, and some other big cities. So the gap between the demand and supply is very huge.
So, but why are you then also focusing on an internationalization strategy? You could be also focusing just on China, grow that big, and then roll out afterwards to other markets.
Yeah, definitely. For now, I think the focus of our business is definitely China, but we are working with the partners We're not going to the other market ourselves. We're working with the partners. We try to, how to say that, try to, using our experience, our skills, our technology to helping other partners in worldwide to help to serve more people.
So, and getting away from only the transportation business of people, maybe also to the transportation of goods. Are there any plannings, like we see it from Uber, for example? They are planning to also offer maybe food delivery and all these kind of things. Are there any plans that you have as well, like this?
Actually, for now, we are only focused on the transportation and transportation of the people. No goods, no other things. Yeah.
Okay. So, what are your next big milestones for next year, for 2016?
I think it's about the how to say that, the market penetration. Yeah. Actually, we have 250 million users using DiDi Kuaidi, and also active users about 40 million each day. But for the Chinese population, this number is very tiny actually. So we have a billion people. So in 2015 or 2017, we try to expand the market size, right?
Okay, thank you very much, Stephen. I would offer it now for another 4 minutes, also to the crowd. We want to use some of their intelligence as well.
Sure.
And are there any questions from your side for Stephen? There's one question.
One question to the user experience in China. Do you think, or how is your experience about app and mobile web? Do you use both for seamless user experience for your services, or are you focused on apps?
Yeah. We are only focused on the app. Someone told me that there's a lot of computation in Chinese market. Before we merged with the Kuaidi, we got very fast computation between DiDi and Kuaidi. But I think we realized that in the middle of the computation that there's a lot of money kind of wasted. So we can using this kind of money to do something very useful, like the DiDi bus. So I think the computation is good, but sometimes you have to focus on something very useful and for the clients and the customers. Right? Yeah.
There's another question.
Yes, my name is Martin John. I'm working for here, still part of Nokia. My question would be, you had one of the goals set to have a car arriving in 3 minutes. How do you make this work in cities that have like such a high level of congestion? 3 minutes, like how?
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult actually. So it's very challenging. I mean, 3 minutes. I mean, when you, if you travel to Beijing, you can realize that the congestion in China, in Beijing, especially in Beijing, is very bad. I traveled to Manhattan this September. Someone told me that Manhattan is very, in United States, it's the most congested cities in United States. But compared to China, it's very, I mean, it's not a big case. So it's very difficult. But I think, how to resolve this problem, I think it's behind this kind of a trend. If you ever travel to China, you can understand that Chinese young people are buying a lot of private cars, but most of the cars are not used all the times. They're wasted. So we're trying to make them to share the cars, vehicles. For now, I think the trend is getting much, obvious now. So I think in the future, I think it takes only maybe 3 years. I think a lot of young people will not buy any cars. I think it definitely will be happening. And also it's happening now. So I think we can resolve this problem. But we have to use this kind of power of the business to give them this opportunity to making extra money beside the full-time job. So that's the reason that I say non-for-profit is not good. So it should be for profit sometimes.
One last question.
Thank you. Hi, Stephen. This is Clemens from Black Lane. With the growing upper and middle class in China, how do you see a shift in the behavior, in the transportation behavior of the Chinese population? Folks who in former times used the bicycle maybe, how do they commute today? Is there a big shift?
Actually, there's a kind of a big shift now. I think so about 10 years ago. I mean, when I worked in China 10 years ago, I think most of the people, commuting to work by the public transportation, even bicycle at that time. And I think it's about maybe 7 years ago, a lot of people buying private cars. But now, especially after 2008, the Olympic game, a lot of people realize that, especially in Beijing and Shanghai, that private cars or American dream is cannot be realized in China. So, it's very, very easy. If each family of the Chinese population have 2 cars, I mean, the world will be destroyed. I mean, we don't have enough resources to support this kind of American dream in China, right? So, and also the roads will be, definitely dead congested. So Chinese people realize that, especially the young people. So they're trying to, moving from this kind of buying the private car to, change to kind of sharing the private cars. Definitely we can see this trend in China, especially the among this kind of, after, the people was born after the 1980s. So I think the trend is very obvious in China.
That's a very interesting insight. I never thought about it like that. Okay, before I leave you from stage, for one question that is not really connected to DIDI Company, but more to the startup scene in general. Is there any Chinese startup with a business idea that you found really surprising in the last couple of months? Something that you thought, wow, that's really an interesting idea?
I work for the Alibaba. Right? There's I think so on the finance side, especially for the, people getting this kind of funding from the P2P funding. Definitely it's a very huge market too. So I think, but of course, it's very difficult in Chinese market because the finance industry definitely state-owned, and government is very, very anxious about that thing. So, but definitely it's very, very interesting. And also the market size is really huge too. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Stephen, you're really enriching this event with your personality here. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you guys. Thank you.